This is Felt Recoil.
All right. Welcome to the Felt Recoil Podcast, episode number 49. A lot to get to this week. We're going to clarify last week's episode. You'll notice we do have music that should start every podcast, and it wasn't there last week. Not exactly sure why. It makes me nervous. Maybe there's never music there? Are you aware we have music that starts the show every week?
I am, yeah.
Okay. My name is Kris. Across from me, back is
Patrick.
Back from fixing your water heater broke.
Yes, sir.
Water pump?
Water heater.
Is there a water pump in the house? It's a water heater.
It's a water heater.
I'm about as dumb as it gets when it comes to those kinds of things. Everything all right? Flooded your crawl space under the house, right? Crawl space under the house?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd really call it a crawl space. It's like a dugout basement.
Oh.
But yeah, there's about 3-4 inches of water in there. Lunchtime last Wednesday, so that's why I was absent.
And your emergency food supply for November 4th. All your rations for when Antifa attacks. Yep. Is it okay? Is it okay?
I was storing my guns down there, actually, so I lost all them in a tragic flood.
All of them are gone? Man, and I had asked you to hold on to all of mine.
Yep. That's just the way it goes.
That's terrible.
I got all my rations, though. I'm not too worried about that.
Guess we'll start over. All right. If you don't know, Antifa has announced basically a day of reckoning on November 4th. Ooh, la la. We got in our time machine, went forward, and filmed exactly what's going to happen on November 4th if Antifa picks a fight. You can see that at facebook.com/Felt Recoil Show. All right. Let's see. We're going to address last week's episode, clarify. I'm not really sure what happened here, but we'll clarify what I talked about. Plus, we have our VOTA of the week to get to, and it's going to take us back to Las Vegas, and then we're going to hear about Patrick's very terrible attempt to find a place. Can I say what you were doing?
Sure.
I should have asked. Okay. Patrick is
I don't know why we've never talked about this before.
He's scouting wedding venues. Terrible time.
I don't know so much that I'm scouting wedding venues as much as Lindsay is.
Sure.
I'm along for the ride, let's be honest.
I think we share some common traits on that end. So we'll get to that in just a minute. And our charity of choice this week is Folds of Honor. So go to feltrecoilshow.com/charities and you can learn more about Folds of Honor Foundation. Since 2007, Folds of Honor has carried forth a singular noble mission to provide educational scholarships to spouses and children of America's fallen and disabled service members. The motto says it best: honor their sacrifice, educate their legacy. Please, we don't need your money. We don't want your money. We're not asking you for money. We're asking you to support good people like the Folds of Honor Foundation at feltrecoilshow.com/charities. We don't get any money off that, and they didn't ask us to endorse them. We just feel like it's something worth sharing with you. Okay, if you want to do it, do it. Go there. There's also a list of other charities. If you do choose to buy something from our web store, proceeds from those sales, about a third of all proceeds we pull in, we donate back to charity. Okay? So, and every charity that would get our money is listed there. All right. This week's show is brought to you by Arguing Sports on the Internet. Does your life have zero purpose and a negative net worth? Try Arguing Sports on the Internet. No experience required. Ability to copy and paste Google search results preferred. Arguing Sports on the Internet. I get so quickly over college football season just because of people arguing sports. It drives me absolutely insane. You do realize if you're arguing college football on Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media platform you choose, that you're arguing about a bunch of teenagers.
What is it really to argue about? I understand
we're better than you.
A discussion, because sure, there's lots to talk about, but really.
And you know, here's the thing.
Fighting over college football? I guess I'm just not, maybe I don't run in those social circles.
Well, if you don't know, which I think you do, the rivalry in our state of South Carolina is Clemson, South Carolina.
Wait, what?
The guy talking to you right now is a South Carolina graduate. But all of his friends, minus the one sitting across from him, are basically Clemson fans. I have zero issue anymore sitting down. I mean, in my younger days when it was, just fun to pick on people and all that, I might rag Clemson fans a little hard, but nowadays I just don't care. I've grown to a point where I go, you know what? It's a game. It's inconsequential to the rest of your life. So I have no problem sitting down and rooting for Clemson. I was told 2 weeks ago I'm not allowed to do that anymore because I watched it with my Clemson buddies and they lost. And they were like, "You're not invited next time, Vermillion." I said, "Sorry about that, guys," which is a true story. But anyway, it just bothers me to death to see people putting so much effort into arguing sports online when there's so many more important things in life that actually affect people's lives. When you do me a favor, next time, and this is just, I know this is terrible, but please, I'm such a wet blanket, forgive me. Next time you're tempted to type in, our quarterback threw for 85% and he's the best on an internet thread of any sort. I want you to pause and think to yourself, do you know that there are children being kidnapped and raped so it can be videotaped right now in this world? Happens every single day. So all you do then is you say, I'm not going to type that. I will type OURrescue.org up top, and I'll make a small donation instead of arguing sports on the internet. It just doesn't affect anything. It helps no one. What is the positive outcome for the world if your sports team wins? Nothing. It's all narcissism. It's all about me, me, me. My team has to win, so I'm happy, happy, happy. I got invited to a party once where I watched a Clemson fan beat a wicker basket with a baseball bat because they were losing. And then he threatened to fight me. But because he's like a blood relative to my brother's wife, I had to just stand there and be like, I want to knock this dude's face in. A, because he's an idiot. B, because he's an idiot. And C, because he called me fat guy and said I was next. I'm dead serious about that. Now, he was drunk out of his mind because...
Sounds like just reason enough to stay away from Clemson fans.
And I'll tell you, you talk about perpetual childhood, the guys... And I'm not talking to the guys who just enjoy watching their team play. I'm not talking to the guys who say, hey, great win for us and all that. None of that matters to me. That's fine. I'm talking about the diehard, I will get worked up and angry if you say my team isn't better than your team guys. And especially the ones who act that way and never went to the school. You are on the top of the list of stupidity in my world. But the point is, I remember this guy looking at me, and he was just out of his mind, drunk and belligerent. And I thought, all this stuff that annoys me about guys like this fella, whose house I was in, is the fact that they never grow up. And the fact that he's wasted. His 4 or 5-year-old kid was in the room watching him beat the wicker basket, and nobody could talk common sense into him. Just kind of, to me, cemented the idea that these people are all perpetually 23 years old, and they'll never grow beyond that. They'll stay where they are, and the world is about me, 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 and my team better win or I've had a bad day. Imagine that. Your team loses, and it ruins the rest of your week because your football team couldn't pull it off. What are you doing with your life?
Pretty sad existence.
All right. Sorry about the rant. I'll move on. But please, can we just be grown-ups when we talk? And again, I want to be real clear. I don't mind if you just go, hey, my team's great. And another guy goes, your team sucks. My team's better. And you guys rib each other a little bit. No problem. I'm talking about the overly impassioned crazies out there.
It's funny to me that... So the NFL, I think, is now having that light bulb moment of we really don't matter. In other words, there's so much more going on in the world. And now that they've taken a stance where they're going to allow people to see what I did there, take a knee.
Right.
They've gotten to this point where, people are turning it off. And then I was listening to the radio the other day, and this guy says, ticket sales are already slumping because people are just kind of over team sports. And I was like, okay, so now we're just making excuses.
You mean like in Zimbabwe, maybe?
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? So it's just really funny that they're trying to deflect, but to me...
Always an excuse.
That cause is all one and the same.
Well, I think you're exactly right. They don't matter to the rest of the world. Sports is entertainment. And the first thing that goes out the window...
Escapism.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it as well.
Political escapism.
Turn your mind off.
Yeah. turn your mind off for a couple hours, enjoy a game, and then when that's over, you go back to the real world.
Not anymore.
But now, ESPN and the NFL have politicized everything to the point of there is no escaping it.
Yeah, there's no enjoying it.
You got Bob Costas lecturing you on Black Lives Matter at halftime. Shut up.
All of
Just
it.
shut up.
All of it based on a lie.
Yeah.
All of it. There's not a single point these people have made that wasn't predicated on a lie. And if that's hard for you to imagine, please visit facebook.com/Felt Recoil Show and look at the article we posted this week. And I'm going to start with this and try and tie everything together. Last week's program, I flew solo. And in the midst of that, not even in the midst, the basic crux of last week's show was my personal disappointment in someone I thought pretty highly of. Now, I wrapped last week's show with a sliver of respect for John Correa from Active Self-Protection. And, well, let me rephrase. I still had a fair amount of respect for him. And I thought I was fair on the show last week to say I have a gentleman's disagreement with the fact that he's taken a knee in front of the American flag at his state's capital and saying he's doing it based on the fact that racial inequality in the American justice system is a thing. I then went on to cite FBI statistics that show that the vast majority of people arrested are white. Then I talked about what's the recidivism rate between the white and black community. If your argument's going to be, well, black people get more harsh sentencing for the same crimes, well, what's the recidivism rate? Meaning, if a white guy and a black guy have each stolen a candy bar, but it's the black guy's fourth time stealing the candy bar and the white guy's first, of course the white guy gets a more lenient sentence. But the study everyone is citing now to say sentencing is disproportionate based on race doesn't examine that issue. It's not there. So I find it disrespectful on John Correa's part, A, to take a knee, and B, to say, I'll take a knee and side with people like Colin Kaepernick and those who have started this protest based in the idea that the American police officer is a racist human being. And whether John agrees with that or not is almost beside the point. Because the point is, he has sided with the movement that believes that. The only people taking a knee right now are those who are kneeling for racial equality. And the idea of racial equality being necessary is rooted in the fact that racial inequality exists. But there's no empirical data that suggests it's there. That's kind of a quick synopsis of everything I dove into in last week's episode called Do Not Take a Knee. I want to be clear that I hope you'll listen to the entire episode. I got some nasty grams from John Correa, and it was
Do tell.
Rooted in what I believe it was rooted in was a misrepresentation of what John did. Now, listen to the entire episode last week, and I explain in full detail, and I cite the article he sent me when he was lambasting me for having an opinion contrary to his own. I cited the article he sent me in the episode he refused to listen to, which was kind of the messages he was sending me were so drenched in irony because he was telling me I didn't pause to hear what he had to say, but he obviously hadn't listened to the podcast. So that was pretty funny. And then I'll get into his specific points that he makes in a minute. But the overall point I'm making now is that was a little ironic. Now, someone that listens to this podcast went on the Active Self-Protection page and asked John why he knelt during the national anthem. I think that's what set John off. Now, I never said, and I never hinted that John had knelt during the national anthem. But John says that misrepresenting him on the podcast was in really poor taste. I don't know how I misrepresented him outside of he believes my interpretation of the facts of the protest are contrary to his. John seems to believe that he can take a knee and not group himself with the Colin Kaepernicks of the world, which is the equivalent of saying, I'm going to march with Antifa, but I'm against fascism. That's the whole comedy behind Antifa right now. They're a fascist organization that's going out and beating people up, but saying they're against fascism. Doesn't work that way. To be very extreme, it's like saying, I think Hitler was right on a lot of stuff except the Jews. But everything else he's right on. But I mean, he was wrong on the Jews, but he was right on everything else. You can't tell me that you're taking a knee, as Colin Kaepernick and the rest are doing, but you don't agree with their major issue. Hitler's major issue was a master race that would be propped up by a government supported by the worker. Right?
Yep.
Colin Kaepernick's main issue is racial inequality based on the fact, as Colin Kaepernick said, I know Google is hard, but it's out there. Just go look. Colin Kaepernick said it's because people are murdering black men in the street and being put on paid leave without consequence. And he was referencing the Freddie Gray killing in Baltimore, where, by the way, Freddie Gray, by all accounts, killed himself in the back of a van by throwing himself around to the side, breaking his neck, something like that. But all 6 officers were acquitted. 3 of them were black. Here's a story for you. From the Washington Post. Last fall and in the spring, the otherwise quiet campus of Eastern Michigan University was hit by 3 ugly incidents of vandalism targeting blacks. The first came in September when KKK was sprayed in red, white, and blue paint on the wall of a dormitory, along with a threat that used a racial slur and told blacks to leave. Then, on Halloween, the same ominous hate message used the N-word and ordered blacks to leave. It showed up on another building, this one right next to the campus's monument to the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. It really has rocked our community. Judith Kohlberg, an EMU political scientist and president of the Faculty Senate, told the Washington Post, in this whole context of a very tense presidential election, it has raised anxiety here considerably. In the spring, a third racist message was left in a men's restroom stall, coming as other campuses were dealing with similar acts of what appeared to be hate vandalism. The incidents sparked protest and made national news. So again, set the stage. Trump has now been elected. The national news is focusing on supposed hate crimes and oppression of black people around the nation. And Colin Kaepernick has already begun taking a knee and saying, see, I told you. See, I told you. On Tuesday, the university was shaken again when police announced that a 29-year-old black man, a former student, had been charged in all 3 crimes. The suspect is Eddie Curlin, a student at the school from 2014 to 2016 who was serving a 1 to 5 year sentence on an unrelated charge of receiving and concealing stolen property. Curlin was arraigned in court on charges of malicious destruction of property, identity theft, and using computers to commit a crime. A preliminary hearing is set for November 9th. You'll hear me say it time and time again, manufactured oppression. Here's a black guy that went around and sprayed racist graffiti all over everything. And take note, by the way, he's not being charged with a hate crime. If it was a white guy, he'd be charged with a hate crime. But this is a black guy being racist against black people, and so it's not as important. Okay? This is manufactured oppression. The oppression of the black community as a whole does not exist in the United States of America, and there's no empirical evidence to prove it. I had a cousin post on Facebook a while back and list all these stories. And I quickly poked holes in about the top 3 and said these are all fake and they've all been proven to be hoaxes. And her reply was, the point still stands. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The point does not stand that America is racist if all the racist accusations are because black people are faking crimes.
But if you don't think about it.
It makes a lot of sense. Check this out. To know as a person of color is hurtful, a black student, Jaquan Rodwell, told the paper. Listen to this. As a black student, to know that another black person is using the N-word in a negative way is embarrassing. So not embarrassing to use the N-word, only if it's in negative context. Because again, there's a standard among the PC crowd. Let's be really clear. This isn't all black people. This is not all white people. This is an echelon of the politically correct crowd who believes they're better than everybody. Black PC crazies who believe we can use the N-word as long as we're, what's the word? What do they call it? As long as we're appropriating it for our cause. So, rap music, okay? Black characters in TV shows, black people on World Star Hip Hop, okay? All the time. Use that N-word all the time. Typical white guy, not allowed to do that. One standard for them, another standard for us.
World Star bookmarked.
Yes, of course you do. EMU President James Smith said in a statement to the campus community that the vandalism created significant pain, fear, and distress among the students, faculty, and staff, and that he felt angry about them. Check this out. You ready? The school launched several efforts to combat what we're seeing as hateful attacks, including increased spending for security, additional lighting and cameras on campus, expanded diversity training for university leaders and others, and a presidential commission examining diversity and inclusion. Despite the suspect being black, the president of the school says those efforts will continue. So dumping all this money into a program to fight something that doesn't exist. It only exists in the mind of the person who wants you to believe that they're oppressed. And here's the point I'm making. I gotta
figure out a way to cash in on this. There's got to be a way, right?
Not that I can think of. You're straight white male.
Oh.
All apologies.
Oh, well.
The crux is that John Correa bought into this hook, line, and sinker. And he's not the only one. And that was the point I made in last week's episode was, here's a guy who went to the State House and talked to the media, but said, I'll only talk to you if you leave my business out of it, because I don't want my business to be hurt. Then when it hit Facebook, and people were realizing, oh, wait a second, this guy took a knee during the anthem? And then he said, by the way, after posting on his personal Facebook, I don't care if, this might ruffle some feathers, but it is what it is. There's, oppression of black people in America. His response was, I'm not going to argue with strangers on the internet. Here's the story. Read it for yourself. And then once people did read the story, they still told him, I'm not going to do business with you. I'm not subscribing to your channel. I'm going to unfollow you. Take a hike. You're wrong. And then the barrage of messages began. Okay? Because as I was trying to figure out how I misrepresented him, I very rarely go back and listen to this podcast. I usually lay it down, make sure the levels look good when we're done, listen to the maybe middle, first little bit of it, and move along my merry way. So I went back and listened, and I'm going to tell you, I stand by everything I said 100%, 100,000%. John says it was in really poor taste. I told him, yeah, about as poor taste as taking a knee in front of the flag, teaming up with Colin Kaepernick. He says, I didn't listen to a thing he said, and I just ran with a caricature. This is what he wrote to me. It's like you didn't even listen to a thing I said, and then just ran with a caricature of what I said to what you want to hear to rant about. Syntax and grammar aside, I think what he's trying to say is, I assumed things so that I could rant on the podcast. But whatever. You assume motives and assume facts when you have none, and in that show a lack of critical thinking. Good day. Couldn't help but think there of the scene in Willy Wonka when they think they've won, and he turns and he's like, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. Good day, sir. And he kicks him out. That's what I kept thinking about. I tried to tell him, I disagree with you. I don't dislike you. I don't think you're dumb for doing what you're doing, but I believe you're 100% wrong. Told him the anecdote of a friend of mine who went to Chicago to join up with Occupy. And I told that friend, don't go, don't go, don't go. You're on the wrong side of history to join forces with Occupy. He went. He eventually went back and stayed. He is now completely unhinged and off the reservation. John goes on to say, the titling of the podcast, Do Not Take a Knee, I guess, shows I didn't understand nor really listen to what I said. The clickbait alone is offensive, but again, you do you. Just understand I did you a favor coming on your podcast, not the other way around. And repaying that favor the way you did was incredibly rude. Okay. I didn't know John was coming in with the clutch on all these favors. I will say, Larry Vickers has been on this podcast, and he didn't take a knee, and he's never been rude to me via Facebook Messenger. Plenty of other guests have come on this podcast who haven't taken a knee. And if they did, by the way, if Larry Vickers does take a knee tomorrow, I'll tell him to buzz off the same way. Because here's the thing. The fact that John had to tell the media not to mention his businesses, whether he knows it or not, is an acknowledgement that the majority of Americans see kneeling in front of the flag as disrespectful and inappropriate. He understood that, but he thought he could have his cake and eat it too. That he could take his knee, support his friend, keep his businesses out of it. And when that didn't happen, he's going to take it out on me, which I'm fine with. As I mentioned in last week's episode, I've done this before. I've said things about people before that makes them unhappy.
I mean you all the time, so you're pretty much used to it.
Nearly every day.
Yeah.
I get, But I've literally lost jobs over saying things about people that were true things but hurt their feelings, and those people had enough sway to get me fired. Okay? I was in the radio business. That's what I was supposed to be doing. I don't care if your feelings are hurt when I tell you what my opinion is. What I do care about is that you handle it like a man, like an adult, and possibly say, hey, what I wanted to do was share with you the facts on which my opinion were based. Or better yet, hey, I listened to your podcast. Appreciate you saying that you had this respect for me, that you appreciated what I do for a living. Appreciate you saying I'm a good man. All of those things I did about John.
That's true.
Possibly listen to the actual podcast and then say, but I wanted to write you a nice retort, and maybe you can share this with your audience and leave it to them to decide. That's the way you handle these kind of things.
I think it's kind of funny that, of all people, a guy like John Correa would come at you in that sort of way. Instead of having, as you put it, a retort or just, a response that said, hey, this is really what I was going for. And maybe the message got misconstrued, but here's what my actual point was. And he could deliver that to you in a conversational manner versus this attacking and talking down, because obviously Felt Recoil is not as big as Active Self-Protection, is the way he chooses to do this. It's just sort of funny to me. I see it as sort of that typical way people want to communicate now, where they don't want to have a conversation. It's just, well, here's my opinion, and it's the only one that matters. The end. Good day, sir.
Right. Exactly. I'm not saying this for sure. What I wanted to do was explain a little bit as to why I didn't invite John on the podcast. And I'm not seeing it. I think he deleted his post saying he took a knee. When did he take the knee?
I've been looking for it for the majority of the time we've been talking here, and I can't find it.
I think he deleted it. I think business got bad real quick, and he took it down. He was commenting as active self-protection on the thread, where again it was kind of misrepresented, misconveyed that he knelt during the national anthem, and I apologize for that, but I had nothing to do with it. It's not on me that when people hear now that you're taking a knee in front of the flag, they just assume that you're doing it during the national anthem. But anyway, maybe you have to be friends with him. I unfriended him. I didn't want the messages anymore. But I guess you can still send them because I'm still getting them. Or I was still getting them after unfriending him. So here's my point. Let me just make the greater point instead of being distracted. I didn't invite John on because his demeanor and the way he was interacting with people on his page who were disagreeing with him was curt. It was short-tempered. It seemed juvenile.
Well, much in the way it sounds like he responded to you.
Yeah. And I thought, it doesn't sound like he wants to have an honest conversation about it. Now, had John been engaging his people, providing facts instead of feelings, then I would have said, hey, we should probably sit and talk. But to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seemed easier to say, okay, I'll tell you what. He's got his opinion. I've read his opinion. I've watched the news story of him multiple times. And so I'll just talk about it and let people decide. Anybody that has a differing opinion is always welcome to tell me what theirs is, and then you decide.
But isn't that what we were always told makes America great in the beginning, is we can have differences of opinion and just still go on with our lives instead of this overly animalistic approach?
Well, we're all just angry because social media has made us think we're right without repercussions. Principle without consequence is what I kept saying last week. It's kind of the same thing. I can go on Facebook and I can tell you me too, hashtag me too, and you're not allowed to go, what happened? Whoa, that's overly personal. I'm playing a victim here. Hashtag me too. Okay, wait a second. We want to hear your story. Well, listen, sexual harassment or sexual assault. Okay, but at first it was just supposed to be about victims of sexual assault. It's Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, well, now we're all going to lump ourselves in. So it's like, and I'm not saying every girl doing it is wrong, but a lot of them are. A lot of the women hashtagging the Me Too thing are staying ambiguous and, I don't want to tell my story, but I'm brave because of this. The actress who now says that George H.W. Bush, 91 years old and in a wheelchair, reached up and touched her backside, and that was sexual harassment. He made a crude joke. It's so out of control that it leads me to believe that all these women, as I've talked about on this podcast before, who like to go, hey, sweetie, what can I get for you today? Hey, honey, what you want today? Hey, sweetheart. Hey, darling. That's sexual harassment. Hashtag me too. Shut up about it. Hashtag me too. I've been sexually harassed. You don't think girls go to bars, get wasted, and come and fall all over guys and try and dance on them? You don't think that happens? That happens.
Actually, no, I didn't know that happened.
It does happen.
Wait, has that happened to you?
It's
because I don't... you know what? Just move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I was cool in my 20s. You were in a band. You were like the drummer of a band. Don't act.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Your fiance doesn't listen. Just put it all out there. Then I'll tell her to listen. Anyway, it's kind of this, I can play a victim and no one can yell at me. I can always be right. I can insulate myself in this bubble of social media, and I never have to answer for it. But that isn't fair when you're accusing people of being sexual predators or racists. You don't get to do that. So if John wants to take a knee with the Take a Knee crowd, which, sorry, John, includes Colin Kaepernick, and he wants to be butthurt when I get on the air and say, hey, sorry, loss of respect, then too bad. Too bad. Because what has to happen then is you have to say to each other, hey, man, this is where I disagree. That's what I thought I was doing with last week's episode. I thought I was just saying, here's all the areas I disagree, and this is why it's silly to have that opinion. Because 70% of people arrested in this country are white. 70% of them. Okay? If the cops were as overtly racist as the Take a Knee crowd believes they are, then that wouldn't exist. They would just not arrest white people. White people would be 10% of arrests. And they would just go out and arrest black people. But that doesn't happen. Because a lot of police officers are black. Okay? It's just absurd. And anyway, I hate that I let it take up this much time. But John said he felt like last week's episode was highly disgusting and highly crap and highly ugly and grossly irresponsible. That's a direct quote. And I wanted to clear it up and say I wasn't trying to say the guy took a knee during the national anthem. And I never did say that. I never even hinted that that was the thing. The problem is that you joined the camp of people that do by taking a knee in front of the American flag. And for the record, your friend said there's never a bad time to take a knee to the media. As you knelt next to him, your friend said there's never a bad time to take a knee. That means it's not a bad idea to take a knee during the national anthem if that's when you choose to do it. So, misrepresentation or what your friend said and a logical conclusion, you decide. But I don't appreciate the attitude. I don't appreciate being treated like I did something ugly or misrepresented or lied about somebody. Because all I'm doing is sitting here telling you what people are doing and then trying to draw conclusions and say, doesn't that mean this? So John Correa wants to send a nice email and say, hey, man, I finally manned up and listened, and here's all the places you're wrong. I'll read it verbatim right here. But it's not going to happen because he's impassioned about a subject of which he knows very little. There's nothing I can do about that. Okay? And again, due to the attitude he has on Facebook towards other people was half the reason he didn't get invited on the show. There's nothing I can do about not wanting to know it all to come in here and try and tell me everywhere I'm wrong if you can't have a decent conversation with somebody. I got on a John, quick side note, and I'm going to be done with it, but John posted that you shouldn't own a revolver unless it's a Smith & Wesson and a Ruger under a picture of a revolver blowing up. So the inference there is that if you don't own a Smith & Wesson or a Ruger, your revolver will blow up. I commented.
I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Right. They never jam either.
No, they're perfect. I commented and said, "Hey, I don't think it's fair." Wait, how did it start? I started with Ruger, ? The company that won't even provide a warranty on their gun of any sort. Ruger, whose paperwork tells you to check what state law says they have to do, and that's what they'll do. And if they do any more, it's out of the kindness of their hearts. The people on his page got so mad at me for not liking Ruger. They all told me how Ruger had fixed their guns that broke. And I thought, point proven. Ruger is not impervious. And that's the entire point. No manufacturer of firearms is impervious to a breakage. Okay? Springfield has recalled guns. Smith & Wesson, SIG, Ruger Mark IVs are being recalled right now, correct? Something like that.
I believe so. Yeah.
Remington, they've all had massive recalls. Do not listen to anyone who tells you there's only one way to do things in that life, okay? Do not listen to that person. Even if they say there's only one of two ways to do it. Kimber makes a fantastic revolver, okay? You go buy that KS6, you're in pretty good shape. That thing's nice. But if you listen to somebody that says, hey, Smith & Wesson or Ruger or everything else is crap, okay.
Colt's back in the revolver game.
I'm just saying. I mean, look how easy it is to come up with alternatives. You got two solid alternatives to two other options. And there's nothing wrong with any of those four. Ruger makes a great revolver. Smith & Wesson makes a great revolver. Colt makes a great revolver. Kimber makes a great revolver.
I don't know if you're trying to head down this road, but to me, this seems like a rebuttal to his claim that the show that you did last week was clickbait. Because a post like that, it tells me the only two guns that are worth a crap are Ruger and Smith & Wesson. That, to me, is nothing but clickbait.
Well, you keep saying I'm going to be real candid here. I actually wrote out, you keep saying clickbait. I don't think that word means what you think it means. And then I deleted it. Little Princess Bride reference. Because I didn't want to be rude to John. And if John contests anything I say here, by the way, I'll gladly publish all the back and forth. I had my wife read it. I showed it to my dad. I said, hey, I just want to make sure I was even keeled with this guy. I'm trying. I'm not being nice tonight. And I recognize that. I was trying to be nice. But I feel like I got attacked as a dishonest person. And even though it was in private, I'm going to publicly tell you I'm not a dishonest person. To the best of my ability. Okay? We all mess up sometimes. But my point is, I didn't misrepresent anything. Not an iota. Not an ounce. I read the story. I drew conclusions. That's what I do. You got a different conclusion? You want to explain yourself? Do it. But saying read the story isn't an explanation. Sorry. I diverted. It is a rebuttal to that. But clickbait is when you put a link that says it leads to one thing and it does not. And all you want is for people to click that link. I said a reputable YouTube gun guy took a knee and sided with Colin Kaepernick. And then, when you click the link, you could hear an hours-long explanation as to why I thought that was true. Including the very article this gentleman sent me to say I should have read before I talked about him, and I read it. I cited it in the episode last week. I don't know what more I could do, okay? Could I have invited him on? Possibly. But I wasn't going to because his demeanor on social media is that of somebody who doesn't care to have an honest conversation about it. And again, I've liked John for a very long time. I respect the guy. I think he
turned me on to him a long time ago and had nothing but great things to say about him.
He does great work. He really does. He's a smart man. But I don't appreciate any sort of, it's not even a hint, accusation of me misrepresenting him. Didn't happen. It 100% didn't happen. And just in case that rumor's floating around somewhere, here's the answer to it. It never happened. It never happened. And I defy anybody to find the spot where it did. Okay? Didn't happen. I'm done with it. I'll move on. Put it behind us. It'll be here forever. But I'm over it. I'm over it. I would shake John's hand right now. And I tried to say last week, and I said it verbatim, it's a gentleman's disagreement. Respect you, but it's a gentleman's disagreement. And then when he came at me through Messenger the other night, I was like, all right, well, screw it. Screw it. We'll address the whole thing openly, get all the cards on the table, and I'll tell you how dumb I really think it is. It is absurd to imagine that anybody on our side of the aisle, not left or right politically, But gun community is what I mean when I say that. In this community, anybody taking a knee in front of the flag is absolutely hard for me to comprehend, except if they're simply doing it for attention that they thought would pay off in a positive way. And what I think happened is John got caught with his hand in the cookie jar and he took it out on me in Facebook Messenger. That's what I think happened. But I don't know. And I told him, by the way, that John really believes that taking a knee is the right way to have the conversation about racial discrimination in this country. He's got more than 500,000 YouTube subscribers. The man can take a knee right now, put it on videotape, and 500,000 people will be exposed to it tomorrow, and he can have that conversation, but he won't do it. Mark my words, he won't do it, because that 550,000 would fall to less than 200 like that, and he recognizes it. He recognizes that that view is bad for business because nobody agrees with it. It's not that it's bad for business because it's unpopular and right. It's because nobody agrees with it because we recognize it's wrong. But it's up to him. Take the knee. You believe in it? You're a man of principle? Take the knee. Put it on your YouTube channel. Let's see what happens. Take a knee in front of that flag. Let's watch what happens.
A lot of lessons here.
Okay. Moving on. I'm sorry I hijacked everything. I want to talk. Tell me what happened this weekend. So if you don't know, Patrick is trying to get married. He finally conned this lovely young lady into doing that, which poor girl.
Yeah, I'm
but
still not sure how that worked out.
I would say you can't go back and change the past, but you can actually. You haven't signed anything. Go back. Young lady, change the past. Okay. I told you not to tell me any of this. I want to hear it now. What happened? So, let me set the stage. Patrick booked a romantic getaway for Monday and Tuesday of this week, with the idea being maybe they would tie the knot at this same location.
Correct.
So, Monday comes. It's a day to arrive, and what happens?
So we found this place, and I'm not going to say the name of it.
Sure. No, of course not.
I don't want to besmudge this fine establishment or its owners.
I'll say it. Holiday Inn Express, you got some splaining to do.
That's right.
You got some splaining to do, Holiday Inn.
What I will say is this is a turn-of-the-century log cabin.
Very cool.
Up in the mountains.
Okay.
And it was the first house to have electricity in South Carolina.
Huh.
Fun fact. So there's a water wheel apparently back then.
I'm not gonna say the name, but man, I'm gonna give you everything
right.
you need to know.
If you want to dig, you can find it. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
So there's a couple of houses on the property. It's about 10 or 12 acres. And so the idea was we would go spend a couple nights there, check it out, see if this would be a cool place for a wedding venue. Could house a bunch of people there because you got 3 houses, right? I don't even know how she found this, honestly. I have no idea.
Oh, she found it. She's having to do all the work, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought we already went over this.
Carry on.
So, we both took off work for a couple days and decided we'd go up the mountain, check this place out. Monday, we had a pretty fierce storm.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of tornadoes and stuff in the area.
Yeah.
Took a toll on Spartanburg, not far from here. So we left a little late. Lindsay had a doctor's appointment, so we left in the afternoon, and it took a while to get there. I'm sure you've stayed at Verbo houses or
vacation rentals by owner, VRBO,
right,
yeah.
or Airbnb type situation.
Kind of my preference there. Yep.
So we've used both.
Mm-hmm.
And every time in the past, you get a little welcome email saying, hey, we're excited you're coming to stay at our place. Here's the code to get in. And whatever pertinent small details you might need.
Yeah, mine usually says, please don't leave the carpet in the same way you did last time.
Fair enough.
3 kids.
So every time we've ever stayed at one of these places, there's a keypad to get in.
Yeah.
And they usually change the code. It'll be like the last 4 of your phone number. Okay, pretty simple, right?
Sure.
Literally every time we've done this, which is probably about a half dozen times now, that's how you get in the property. So we're thinking no sweat. that's how we'll get in. This is pretty easy. The owner of the property doesn't live close by, so I'm assuming there's a caretaker, somebody to come in, set the place up, clean it, etc. So we start heading up there, and it's getting dark fast after this storm. It's flooded all through the mountains from all the rain. We got just an incredible amount of rain. We get up there, and there's power lines down. So you're going through these really tight, windy mountain roads, and there's crews working, trying to get the power back on. And we don't know the power's off at this point, but you can assume there's not a whole lot of other power lines going in this direction, right? So by the time we get past all that and get to the house, it's actually already dark. It's only like 6-ish.
Yeah.
But you're way up in the mountains.
Right.
It gets dark really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it's pitch black.
I mean, just for reference here, Greenville, South Carolina, where we're recording now, is in the foothills of the mountains.
Right.
And there's a certain time of year where it's dark around 6 o'clock every night, even in Greenville. So to go up into the mountains,
Yeah.
kind of could help a little, but not really.
Yeah, I guess
You're kind of in between the mountains where you went.
Where we were, you're kind of down in this valley, so you're kind of in the shadows. So we get there, it's pitch black. Literally, it's just darkness, and there's no power. We can't get in the house. At which point, we're like, okay, well, we'll call and just see what's going on. And we both realize we have no cell phone service. Now, the closest town is over a half an hour away.
I like it.
That we know of.
Right.
So we decide, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll just drive north, and we'll see if we can get a signal. I mean, the other option was turn around and go back to where we knew we could get a signal, which was at least a half hour away.
Sure.
So we thought, well, maybe get a little somewhere closer a little quicker, right? So we head up the road, and it gets more mountainous and more windy as we go. Again, it's pitch black, and I'm not kidding when I tell you this. We come to a bend in the road, and written on this big rock face that's hanging off the side of this mountain, it says in white paint, "Are you lost?" ?
No.
Needless to say, Lindsay was not excited. So, I mean, I don't know where we're going.
Right.
Because I don't have a map. We don't have phone service. And I don't really know where we are.
Now, let me ask you. You saw the rock, and did the man standing next to it without his shirt on holding the axe offer any directions?
We kept going.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Quickly.
Yeah. Whip. All right. Sure.
Yeah. I told Lindsay just to ask, and she wouldn't roll the window down.
See, I view that as what I like to call a time to test your D5 skills.
Right.
I'm going to up out and see if that Haley course was worth it.
She literally said to me when we saw the rock, "So you have a gun, right?"
Sure. Yeah.
And I laughed.
Right. Yeah.
Because there was like 5 in the car.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so we keep driving. Eventually we get to a little, I guess it was like a bed and breakfast that we find that all the neon signs are on. I think there was a bar there as well.
Oh, that's called a brothel.
Right.
Brothel. I like that you convinced her as a bed and breakfast.
Right.
This place looks wholesome.
Right.
Neon signs, the bar's open.
They have
in the middle of the woods.
They have a little A-frame sign out by the road that says like barbecue available today. They got a big Bud Light neon, and it says something like, Fran's Bed and Breakfast or something. And which is a little weird. Bed and breakfasts usually have barbecue.
That
seems a little suspect.
We have a family friend that runs one that's an exact replica of George Washington's home, Mount Vernon. And no, they're very, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, it's very dainty, like biscuits and tea type stuff. So barbecue would be
good day, sir.
Good day. So funny. The point I was going to make was no for him, but it's a little highbrow.
Yeah, we're kind of in the sticks.
Don't take it the wrong way, but you're lost in the woods of South Carolina.
Right.
So maybe. I mean,
At this point, I'm not sure I was still in South Carolina.
It was also a
full
trailer.
Disclosure. Right. So we think we have enough cell phone signal to get through. So we try calling this guy, we try texting him, we try emailing, and we get nothing. But we're not sure that the messages are going through.
Sure.
The phone call was spotty at best, and it didn't seem like the rest was actually, like the phones were functioning. So it's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to keep driving a little bit further. So that's what we do. And we end up in a little one stoplight town in North Carolina at some point. And I decide I better fill the truck up because who knows where we're going to end up at this point. And we get a hold of the caretaker of the property. The owner never answers the phone. Okay, so we eventually got some cell service. Caretaker is a nice guy, but he had no idea we were coming.
Uh-oh.
None whatsoever.
Sure.
Okay, so he was a little shocked at the 8:30 p.m. phone call of, hey, we're supposed to be spending the night there.
Right.
It was one of those, yeah, well, nobody told me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Poor
no
guy.
kidding, right?
Poor guy, yeah.
So he says, okay, well, here's the master code to get into the house. So we're going to let you stay at one of the houses. We're having some plumbing issues at the main house.
The one you rented?
Well, essentially we rented all three. Okay, so when...
Man. Can we pause and you tell me what it's like to be so rich? I rent 3 houses and decide which one I will dine in.
Right. So we rented all 3 for the purpose of being able to look at them. But
Okay.
the one that he gave us a code for was the one we would actually be staying in.
Okay.
Okay. So it was really just we were supposed to get a code so we could look at the other houses just so we could get an idea if this was going to work.
Yeah, you're trying to accommodate guests and visitors and things like that.
Right.
I get it.
No intention of staying in that house, which he tells us has no plumbing.
Are you mad that it sounds like so far you've essentially already paid for what would be your wedding?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
So at this point, we turn around and go back and drive another who knows how long, at least 30 minutes. So sometime after 9 o'clock, which, by the way, our check-in time was supposed to be 3 p.m.
Sounds about right.
Never got the email. Just didn't happen. So,
Yikes.
Of course, I'm thinking we've been forgotten about.
Sure.
These things happen. And I'm a forgiving guy. I'm okay with that. I've been forgotten about before.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Kris.
What? What did I do?
Never mind.
I was thinking about your wedding day.
We'll come back. Come back to that later.
You're really going to be forgotten. She's going to wise up.
But when you're in a situation where there's no way to communicate, and now you're having to scramble in the dark, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like the odds were just against us from the get-go. Power being out, getting there after dark.
Yeah.
No cell service. We're having to drive.
Massive storm the night before.
An hour, so 30 minutes one way at least, another 30 minutes back. We finally get in the house, and it was not what we thought it was going to be.
Really?
It was in pretty rough shape, I would say. I'm trying to be nice and not be too rough on these folks.
Okay.
Because the main house, the big house, seems pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures look great online. Got a lot of good reviews. This house, not so much. It was a little rough around the edges.
Okay.
And it was sort of pitched to us as rustic was the word they kept using.
All right, yeah.
I don't know that rustic means what they think it means.
Uh-oh.
So
to them, shanty is rustic?
I guess.
So, for instance, we once rented a cabin in the woods of Tennessee along the Pigeon River, and it was rustic, but it was nice on the inside, like newer amenities. But then a big old spider crawled out onto the fireplace while we were sitting in the living room. About lost my ever-loving, like as big as my hand, spider just crawls up and then went right back down into the floor. So
It's called a mouse, Kris.
Yeah. I wish. We stuffed towels around the edge so it couldn't come back into the house. That's rustic. Like it's there's a nice rustic and then there's a shanty that's just junk.
I'd say that's a fair assessment.
So where are we? So perception of rustic, are they 70% of the way there? 40% of the way there?
I'd like to not confuse rustic and the word clean.
Okay. So do you think that's what they were doing?
I don't know. I don't know.
So rustic to them meant dirty?
Let me tell you what Lindsay's impression was.
Don't you mansplain her feelings?
Right. It wasn't very well furnished.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. So it was rustic.
Right. And the furniture seemed to be very old, which maybe adds to a quote-unquote rustic appeal, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Lindsay's thought was that it looked like someone died, and then everybody got all the stuff that they wanted, and then the furniture that was in this house was what was left over that nobody wanted.
I see. Okay.
She said it in a much more funny way than I just did, but just trust me, it was an honest and fair assessment.
Sure.
It just looked like very little effort was put into it. Okay?
I'm with you.
So, we have... I don't want to sound like we're complainers, because we're really not. We did stay in a Verbo place one time we rented, and we had a pretty serious issue when we were there. And we immediately fired off an email to the property owner, and they took care of it.
I'm sorry. Wait. Is this the underwear and the bedsheet story?
Yeah.
Okay. Patrick found...
That's a whole different story.
Oh, that's not... So it's not the same place?
No, that is. I'm just saying that's a whole different thing than what we're talking about right now.
We'll just leave it at that.
It wasn't just like one pair of underwear either. There's lots of dirty underwear all over this house.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was like you found one pair of women's underwear in the sheet.
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
We'll save that for episode 136.
All right.
So
we'll pull Hanes in as a sponsor for that.
I like it. Smart.
I found
Clorox as well.
When I found my 5th pair of Hanes underwear, I thought, these look cottony and fresh and comfortable, yet unsightly when they're not your own. That's what we can do for you, Hanes. Give us a call. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So we thought we'd fire off an email and just say, hey, this isn't really what we thought we were getting ourselves into here. The internet didn't work. And it was very apparent when we got in the house that no one was expecting us. It was a crisp 56 degrees inside.
See, I thought the bodies gave it away.
Right.
Sounds to me like,
So we decided that we probably should just turn around and go home. Because we just felt like the whole thing was a disaster.
It's 9 o'clock-ish at this point. Where are we at time-wise?
Yeah, we're probably closer to 10. We got in a little after 9, I guess. So we kind of milled it over, and we're kind of like, all right.
You each sat on a milk crate and talked to each other.
Right.
What are we going to do here?
Across an old cable spool table.
Right, yeah.
So, we were told by the caretaker that there were some serious plumbing issues and there would be plumbers on the property the next day. So it just was this perfect storm of nothing seemed to be going right.
Yeah.
And we probably should have taken the sign when we didn't get the email saying, hey guys, excited to have you there. Need anything, reach out and give us a call. When we didn't get that by check-in time,
sure,
we probably should have... And
maybe,
in full disclosure, we did actually email him a little bit before 3 o'clock and say, hey, just hadn't heard from you. And we got no response. We tried again after Lindsay got back from her doctor's appointment. No response.
Nice.
So the conclusion of this story is we sent an email say, hey, I think we made a mistake here. We didn't stay last night. We're not coming back tomorrow. This wasn't what we signed up for.
Sure.
So, and we weren't trying to be mean about it. We didn't tell them that we felt it was misrepresented. It just wasn't what we thought it was.
Yeah.
So, rustic to some. Maybe that's what that means. I don't know. But so we basically said, look, maybe we can work something out, but I think best situation is let's just get our money back, water under the bridge. And so he responded and said, absolutely. I'm sorry. Kind of made it sound like he's trying to blame shift a little bit, like he didn't forget.
Right.
Somebody else forgot.
I'm sorry, the property manager did not.
That's
okay.
Pretty fair assessment. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he kind of played that a little bit, which made me a little.
Yeah, that's off-putting a little bit. Yeah. Don't blame shift.
Right.
Just
take
say
the
hey
hit
and keep rolling. Yeah.
And so he fired off another email apparently this afternoon, to Lindsay, basically saying, hey, I want to give you guys your money back with a sincere apology, and I want to make it up to you. And I want to give you guys 4 nights in the main house.
Oh, okay.
On us.
There you go.
So
where do we go?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know that she's responded yet. But we plan on taking him up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cool property. It's a cool place.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go there and maybe actually see it in the daylight.
Sounds like if you wanted to do a murder mystery theme with your wedding, you found the spot.
Yeah. It was Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick.
I mean, it's a real thing, Growing up, we had the VHS Clue game. Did you have that?
I don't know what you're talking. I had a piece of cardboard with color on it and little things you moved around.
Man, Clue made like a VHS home game, and you would put the tape in and you would watch and figure it out that way. It was awesome.
So you got to play it once?
No, my older sister did it for her birthday. No, it was one of those things where like you would fast forward if I don't remember, but yeah, it was a VHS. If you don't know what that is, pre-DVD, how you would watch things that were recorded. But anyway, so all's well that ends well. Maybe.
So, yeah, I guess so.
Mark.
I guess so.
Sort of. Kind of.
We'll go with that for now.
That's terrible. It reminds me.
It was a long night. We'll put it that way. I think we got home around 1.
So you're not writing the guy off, which I like. You can go back and give the property a second chance.
Yeah.
And just, by all accounts, it's a beautiful part of the state.
Absolutely.
So, 4 days out there should be fun if you're in the main house for sure.
Yeah, and that was the whole point. Yeah. It's a nice place.
So were you supposed to be in the main house the whole time or no?
No.
So you went to the house you were supposed to be in.
Yes.
And it was terrible.
Yes.
And so now you're going to go back and see the main house free of charge.
That's my understanding.
So is it off the table as a wedding venue because the other house is so bad?
Not necessarily. It does pose some issues logistically. It is hard to get to. It's very, very hard to get to because it's so far into the mountains.
Gotcha. But that's a good thing. Yeah. Look, I got married on top of a mountain, literally. Okay? It's literally a 45-minute drive up the mountain. And you know what that does? That weeds out the freeloaders, man. You know what I'm saying? You invite the people, and then you tell them it's way out in the middle of nowhere, and the only people that show up are the ones that really care about you. And I mean that sincerely, because I made them drive for the reception all the way back down the mountain and over to a friend's house. So I'm saying it's worth doing. Just put everybody out there and go, hey, man.
I don't disagree.
You want to go? It's like a destination wedding. Get married wherever, and the only people that come are the people that really care about you, and that's the only people you got to feed.
I tried to, I suggested a destination wedding, and for some reason she did not think Somalia was a good idea. So that's off the table.
I kid you not, when I got married, unapologetically, there were certain family members I didn't invite. And when I found out...
I liked that we're airing your dirty laundry.
I don't care. When I found out my mom had sent them invitations, I threw them away.
You sent retractions?
They got forwarded back to me because addresses were wrong on a couple of them. And I was like, I didn't want to invite that guy anyway, and I just threw it away. One person in particular I'm thinking about. But listen, if you've ever been nice to me in my entire life, and you're twice my age, you're not coming to my wedding. You're not getting fed. Take a hike. What do I care that you're there? You know what I'm saying? My dad and I had a conversation the other day about it just reaches a point where you look at somebody and you evaluate whether or not you need them in your life, and you go, who's putting in the effort on this friendship? Me or them? Is it mutual? If it's mutual, then you keep going. That's how friendships work. Relationships of any sort. But this guy...
Seem to get fewer and further between the older you get, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let me just tell you one quick thing. This fella... The last time I've seen him in person that I remember, I was working at a radio station, and I had just moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and gotten a job. Birmingham, Alabama was, I think, market 56. So of the 250 radio markets that are rated, I think it's 250, somewhere around there. Maybe, let's just say it's 300. Now, let's be conservative. Let's say 200. I know it's more than 200, but to be conservative, 200 rated radio markets for radio in the country. And you have hundreds of people trying to secure jobs in this industry, right? Just like any other industry. But jobs are harder to get. And you have to submit your air check and basically audition, blah, blah, blah. The point is, I just got a new job in a big market, in the top 25 percentile of markets around the country. So I felt like I was doing pretty good. I was making more money than I'd ever made before. And went back for Thanksgiving, and here's this guy, and he goes, so, yeah, you're working in radio? And I said, yeah. And you're talking about a guy, by the way, who's in the military, okay? That's his big claim to fame. And he looks at me, and he goes, radio's kind of one of those things that just anybody does, though, right? Like, anybody can get into that. And I was like, much unlike the military. Stupid man. It was so irritating. So anyway, that was about the point where I was like, yeah. So when his invitation came back,
you should have told him to pick a subject and talk about it for 3 minutes without stopping.
Right, exactly.
And just see how easy it is.
Let's do some extemporaneous speaking, and then you tell me how it goes over. So all I'm saying is there might be something to the idea of put your wedding in the middle of nowhere, man, and then you don't have to throw those invitations in the trash. You just let them fly, because that guy's not coming. I don't know. That guy would probably drive 6 hours for a free meal. So probably. All right, let's do our vote of the week, and then we'll call it a wrap on episode 49 of the Felt Recoil Podcast. And I'm sincerely sorry that happened to you, by the way. What a terrible thing.
It's a rough night,
but you know what? I mean, honestly, though, that kind of builds your relationship. Like when you do it with your fiance and you go out and do that kind of stuff, it's always something you look back on and laugh.
I thought Lindsay was going to get really upset, and she didn't, which is great.
What else? I mean, how could you? What are you going to do?
I guess I just expected her to be upset because she had high expectations of this place.
Definitely disappointed.
And so I think what the emotion really that washed over her was disappointment more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would come out as more anger or whatever,
which disappointment usually does, gives way to anger.
But it didn't. So we actually have been able to kind of laugh about it a little bit.
Now, wait a second. So you didn't stay the night, right?
No.
You just left and came home?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. Sorry,
and it was one of those things where we got home and Lindsay was like, yep, best decision we ever made.
Just come home.
Just to sleep in our own bed and not have this just whole bad experience lingering over us.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of water under the bridge. And we still had another day that we had taken off work. So we went for a hike and just enjoyed the day and made the best out of it. And we'll find another place later.
It's a good outlook. I like it. This week's Voda of the Week is Bruce Paddock, the brother of Las Vegas shooter. He was arrested in California for alleged possession of child pornography, according to the AP, as reported on the Daily Wire, dailywire.com. The arrest was confirmed by a law enforcement official briefed on the investigation, but not authorized to discuss it publicly. Paddock was reportedly arrested at a North Hollywood, California assisted living center where the alleged pornography was located. The arrest came after an investigation that began months before the Las Vegas shooting, after authorities received a tip that he had child porn on his computer. Authorities said no one knew where Paddock was living until another tip came in, leading police to the North Hollywood facility. Our vote of the week, because if your brother is responsible for the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, and you know you have child porn on your computer, probably burn the computer, change your ways.
Or you could do what Stephen Paddock did and just make the hard drive vanish into thin air.
Or shoot yourself in the mouth.
Or both.
Both would be preferred. That's your vote of the week. Find more info on us at feltrecoilshow.com. We'll be back next week for episode number 50. And in the meantime, if you want to talk to us, reach out. Kris, Kris, at feltrecoilshow.com. Patrick, common spelling, at feltrecoilshow.com. And we will see you next time. John Correa, you have my respect. We just disagree. Goodbye.
Good day, sir.
Good day. You drink fizzy lifting bubble juice. Oh, good day, sir.